also wanted to say, Hawks and his mom continue the trend of the child looks like the mom out of the two parents. The only exception I can think of is Natsuo, because his facial structure looks a lot like Endeavor.
Oh,
Yeah.
Tenkaro looks a lot like Kotaro. But I see his mom in there too.
Now that I think about it, most of the Todoroki kids just kind of look like the mom.
But then you got Natsuo, who's like identical to his dad.
Yeah, it's just Endeavor with white hair.
The ending of 129 leads almost perfectly into 130. 130 begins with a flashback to a very young Endeavor and a very young Rei. They are, in this flashback, probably as old as Fuyumi and Natsu are.
Yeah, like 19 or something, 20.
I would say more like 20. Like,
well, that's how
20s.
old. That's how old Fuyumi is.
Yeah.
And
really?
Yeah, their kids are. Shoto is the youngest.
Well, because Toya's like 24.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah. 25.
We learn that. Well, we already knew this, but we actually get to see Endeavor basically only married Rei for her quirk. But what we learn here is that specifically Rei was from a once very prestigious, very like big name in Japan, a big family ice quirk group called the Himura family. I'm assuming it's like either her father or like some sort of figurehead in her family is essentially like, oh yes, you're the future #1 hero. It only makes sense that you marry our daughter here. And he sold her off to Endeavor. Obviously, it's bad, right? Because Endeavor is buying a person.
Essentially, yeah.
But there's like a moment right when they're leaving the place. We get to see the moment that Rei had talked about, where she points out that she likes those like blue flowers, and it puts it into perspective. Endeavor was told that once, the first day they met, and still remembered. You know what Endeavor does after that, and then you know that like towards the beginning his relationship with Toya was kind of positive. So you see what would have been like maybe not the best start to a relationship, but like there's a potential thing there that just spirals into.
Like all of Enji's character, it's not like one solid good or bad scenario. Yeah. It's that, yes, sure, he is doing this for a very messed up reason and for his own personal gain and personal grudge. But at the same time, he's not going to treat her like shit right off the bat. He actually wants to like build that trust between the two of them. And, you know, that positive upbringing with Toya at first before Toya's weakness is revealed, as it were. But it's a very like up and down sort of spiral for Enji, and it's like especially the juxtaposition of seeing where he is in the current day, where him sobbing over all these regrets, only to whip back to like his absolute worst as a human.
Yeah,
it really hits how this journey this man has been through.
We get to see the flashback at the beginning ends, and we get to see Dabi after the battle, after the big war. He is covered in even more scars because he burned himself so bad. It's like almost going up to his eyes.
Oh yeah, it is getting worse. It's like kind of like spreading from his mouth, like where the piercings are.
Yeah, it's like going down his neck now. It kind of went down his neck, but
it was down his neck. But like you can see it like rising up to his face. Like he's about to
And I don't know how else to describe it, because someone had a little crush on Dabi when they were drawing this frame.
No, he looks like a whore. Like what's going on?
They're doing a good thing for us, okay?
For you,
they're doing a great thing for us.
For you,
it was wonderful. Listen, Hori laid down the groundwork for this. The animators just knew the assignment. All right.
All right. Anyway, he's laying on the couch, and he's saying pretty much that now that Endeavor has been called out, essentially, he's going to have to. he's going to have to make a public address about this situation, and he's just so giddy and excited
He's like hee hee hee. But
about
then,
this
like,
situation.
he starts like blood starts like seeping from his eyes.
Yeah, it like seeps from his eyes, and it cuts to the title card. And after that, we go back to the flashback a few years after the beginning, and it's baby Toya, and he's asking Endeavor like, "Hey, how come we are not training anymore? What's going on?" And then Endeavor's just like, "I have to go." So he leaves the house, and it turns out that they went to the hospital, him and Ray. Pay attention to their eyes if you like go back and rewatch this episode. Look at the in the hospital, look at Endeavor and Ray's eyes specifically. They're very soft. They're still full.
Full of life and joy.
But as Endeavor gets the news, you can say it, Seth.
So the doctor essentially tells Ray and Endeavor, even though Toya was born with an even stronger variation of Endeavor's powers, he was born with a body more suited for Ray's family's ice powers. So he's very cold resistant, and he is not resistant to fire at all. So he is hurting himself whenever he uses his fire.
Which I think is so interesting that he kind of took on like Ray's inability to have a quirk like that, but he has Endeavor's quirk, but it's stronger.
Because those are unseen like consequences of how those two drastically different powers could alter the like physical makeup of a person.
It's like a metaphor.
When Endeavor like gets that news, suddenly like you see his eyes get really tensed up into like his classic Endeavor fucking like expression of just
His
like
good old season 2 look.
Yeah, he just you see the like anger really truly start this is like where it really begins.
I think what it is here in this moment is because he's telling Toya, "No, I'm not going to train with you anymore. You're hurting yourself." It's kind of like "No, I don't want to train you anymore. You're hurting yourself." Like, he's very frustrated that Toya can't use his power as well.
Because it's like, I knew you have it. I see your path before you, but it's just, there's one little thing in the way.
Like, it's just like a constant reminder for Endeavor that's like, he just can't reach that goal that he wants to. Like, no matter what, there's always something that's like prohibiting him from getting that.
And then we have a little scene with little baby Toya and little baby
Fuyumi.
She is so precious.
She's
I
so
love this little bean.
She is so precious here.
Because she's like, you shouldn't, do that. It hurts you. I don't like seeing you get hurt. And I think Dabi says something like, or I'm gonna say Toya because this is Toya. He says something like, "Man, you girls just want to get it."
Toya is frequently depicted in this episode to have multiple misogyny moments.
He says something. He says something like, because All Might is on the TV. He's like, I am going to be stronger than that guy, which I think is funny that he doesn't even like care to say his name. I don't even think
it's just he has been told, he has been brainwashed onto this mission, so he's just like, hey, if my dad hates that guy, then I hate that guy.
Too.
He's like, and I'm not going to stop because Dad, you gave me this purpose. You lit this fire under me. I have a purpose to surpass All Might. And we get to another scene. Endeavor is like in his room, sulking in the dark, like an edgy rival. Because he is the edgy rival if you think about it, like at this time, right?
Which is really cool. The way we're seeing, like, they bring it up a couple times how Bakugo and Endeavor are similar, but just seeing like a future where without that like humanity to ground them, seeing the traditional rival character grow up into a full-grown adult, and how that toxic mentality is not yet left and has gotten more and more obsessive over time.
Yeah,
that's why I really like Bakugo too, because it's kind of like it's not a subversion, just like that interesting take on the rival.
Yeah,
Bakugo could have easily been like Endeavor, but Bakugo has a lot more.
He has Bakugo.
He has friends. Yeah,
but Bakugo still believes that he can be the best and he can surpass Deku. While Endeavor here. Well, Endeavor here has given up on himself surpassing All Might.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of spirals.
It's that
That's true.
insecurity.
Yeah.
Bakugo is definitely like he's a more positive like Endeavor in a way.
He's not desperate.
He's not
He tur-
desperate.
Yeah.
He's wanting. He has nothing but motivation to surpass like All Might and Deku.
Yeah, he had that. He turned that insecurity into a personal motivator within his own self, knowing that not everybody was looking down on him this whole time. Not everybody was just writing him off and blowing smoke up his ass, and he wasn't actually anything this whole time. He's just pushing himself along while also maintaining a healthier relationship with his rival compared to Enji, who, instead of being motivated in the traditional sense, it turned into an obsession.
Obsession, yeah.
Yeah.
The scene where he's in the room sulking, watching All Might on the TV, just being All Might, continues, and it's Ray bringing him like some food, because at this point Endeavor has given up on Toya. He doesn't want him to hurt himself, so he's distancing himself from him. And Ray's like, "What you're doing is cruel. Like, you shouldn't just like not be there for your son just because he can't use his power." That's when like Endeavor realizes like Toya can't surpass All Might. I need to move on and try again. I think is actually incredibly interesting that Endeavor's neglect of Toya, despite being horrible to like horrible parenting, does come from a place of care.
Because he doesn't want Toya to like hurt himself more, which like does make sense. It's just that the way that I guess he goes about it is like, again, it's harmful for Toya. It's harmful for the entire family. You know.
That obsession, that like yearning, what didn't fully consume him yet. He's like, I still don't want my first son to burn up and die. I am not willing to go that far for the sake of a title.
Or like
to make another one.
Or if not even, or not even if he doesn't die, like cripple himself.
Yeah, just like destroy himself and have Enji watch and let it happen. Like it's like, I can't do that, so I can protect him by passing that torch to another, someone more better suited for the job. So once again, it's in that perfect gray area of, this is messed up that you're just popping kids until you get the one you want. But at the same time, you are trying to protect Toya and make sure that they don't destroy themselves.
Yeah.
Then he has is this Natsu?
Yeah, it's Natsu. Natsu's born next. And assumingly we get a shot of Toya. And I want to point out Toya's hair is half red, half white.
Oh, it's like Todoroki's.
It's like Todoroki in a way, but it's like the opposite.
Yeah, like, opposite sides.
It's like the opposite sides.
Canvas.
And his face is like he's shocked. He's like, "Oh, like, you're trying to replace me."
Yeah.
Which is as cool as the like Shoto parallel with the hair is with Toya, and I do find it funny how it's like, okay, here's the progression of how it like slowly gets turned more and more white, but then later we see like the tips turn red, parts that were previously white, so it just doesn't make sense.
His hair was doing he was doing kaleidoscope shit.
It was evolving.
Yeah, he was turning around.
It was like, all right, this part of his hair already turned white. Just kidding.
Endeavor is he's fucking.
As we know, and Natsuo was not born with fire powers at all. Yeah. And after we see the shot of Toya, we get another bit with Endeavor in his room, and he just does this like turn. And you see his like eye, and then Ray
knows exactly what's coming.
Looks
next.
up, yeah, and then we pan up, and we see infant newborn Shoto, and like Endeavor's look on his face is like,
it's crazy. it's like a mix of like relief, but also just like
it's like he's like a scientist or whatever, looking upon his like greatest creation.
It's like this
is
has
just
the chance
done.
to be the one. This could be the one. All these years, it could be worth it.
Yeah. Ray is like I feel like Ray has like a feint of like
Ray,
just because it's her child, but also just like she's done, she's tired, she's like
Ray knows what's gonna happen next.
Yeah, she's
and
not very stoked.
She is not happy about this.
Child
knows
after
what this
child after child.
She knows what this child is going to have to go through. And
yeah,
I think it's also just we don't have. It's a mix of that and like
we don't have to do this anymore.
I don't have
like,
to do this anymore.
Yeah,
she's exhausted. Yeah,
we're done.
We don't
Toya is, he knows too.
Toya sees that now Endeavor has the perfect child that he wanted.
He's truly been replaced.
He's been replaced fully.
He does have red tips here too. I guess it's more so just like the red is like seeping down, like it's starting to fade away.
Yeah. Like the roots of his hair are white now, so they're growing out.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Poor kids.
But despite being replaced, Toya is still adamant about trying to become as strong as possible with his fire powers. So he's sneaking out into like the forest and he's training on his own. And he's coming home with even more just injuries,
scars and burns. And then Endeavor is like, dude, you need to stop. Like, be a normal kid. Go make friends. Like, you don't have to do this anymore.
Gut-wrenching performance by Toya's child VA as well.
Right.
There's so much like desperate insanity in his voice.
Yeah.
But yeah, Endeavor is like, you cannot live this life. Live a normal child life. Make friends at your school, go to school, all of that. You cannot continue this.
But the worst part, right, about Endeavor's logic is that Toya tells him, well, all the other kids at school are going to be heroes. And I'm your son, the number 2 hero. So I have to be a hero.
Yeah.
It is what you placed for me.
And he starts to cry, he starts to smoke up, and fire starts to come through his hair. And he pushes Endeavor to the side, and he charges towards the other members of the family, including little baby Shoto. And he tries to burn them.
I think he's going for Shoto specifically.
Yeah, he's going bro.
Right, he's going for Shoto specifically, but it's fire. It's going to spread.
Yeah.
And it cuts to black. And it's like that night. And at this point, Endeavor is completely encased in shadow. He is only like, his outline is only lit in his eyes. And he's saying like, from this day forward, Shoto will no longer be allowed to be around his siblings. Again, goes back to the whole abandoning Toya out of care sort of thing, where it's like kind of from a sense of care, but at this point now it's like don't touch
because now Shoto, like, he can't even be a normal kid. Like this is kind of catching up to what we knew in earlier seasons, where it's like now Shoto can't live a normal life.
Yeah,
he can't even like fucking properly like play with his fucking like siblings.
Yeah, like after so many like quote unquote failures, Enji's being so particular that Shoto goes right, that keeping Shoto away from any possible risks that could happen, whether it be from Toya's neglect or any other X factors, or Shoto not like getting that ambition that Enji wants out of him. He's just, all right, not taking any risks. Shoto will be alone. Shoto will do exactly what I need him to do.
And he's 5. This is a kid. This is a baby.
I also want to point out that in this moment, it's a retread of a previous flashback, and the last time we saw this flashback, Bones animated the wrong hair color on Toya.
Yeah, but now
So-
they got the right one.
Now he has white hair in the flashback.
Which is pretty funny.
So then it's another time skip. The kids are a little older. Shoto has begun his training. We see Toya trying to sneak out again, and Rei tries to stop him, and she's like, just why don't you try and go make some friends or whatever? And then
The other things you can do, like with your life, like you have so many opportunities.
and Toya, after hearing this, goes, "Oh, you're one to talk, Mom. You let your family sell you. Your parents were so broke they sold you, and you had no choice.
But to marry him.
So that's why I'm born. This is my purpose. You're just as guilty as Dad is." And then he leaves. And he
Imagine
gives-
hearing that from your kid.
Your
No, like
kid.
that's so awful. Cause like he's not wrong.
Ray already feels bad about it. These are all things coursing through her brain, but hearing it from her own
literally.
firstborn son and trying to like help him, trying to like pull him out of this obsessive nature, she sees that same horrifying glare as her husband.
And
Also, there's a scene earlier like where he's trying to talk to Natsu, be like, "Hey man, like we have to do something about this," and Natsu's just like trying to sleep. Bro, I'm eating.
It's so sad because Natsu's the only one he feels like he can like truly be open and honest with, but he just doesn't know what to say.
Right,
It's like
'cause-
Toyo's losing it. He's panic attack full on. It's like, oh
Because
my god.
at this point, Toya is a teenager. He's 13. Natsu is only 8. He's a very big child, by the way.
Kid.
He's a big kid. But Natsu's 8. He doesn't understand what like the more intricate thoughts that Toya has when he's like venting to him. So he's just like,
Yeah.
"Hey, can you talk to Fuyumi instead? I'm trying to go to sleep."
Then we have
Yeah.
his second misogyny comment,
Yeah,
where it's the
number
women in this
2
house know
Are
nothing.
useless.
And then the third misogyny is him talking to Mom.
hmm
And Ray, after hearing everything that Toya had said, just collapses and
She shuts down.
she shuts down. And this is we cut to Toya training back in the forest.
You know, absolutely gorgeous shot, by the way, with the
Oh,
fire reflecting on the water.
Oh yeah.
That is really pretty. Yeah. His
And we-
fire's starting to turn blue, kind of like what we know now.
Because we learn that he was born premature, so he's smaller than a lot of his like classmates.
Oh, he's a pre-baby.
Yeah,
He's a
so
pre-baby.
he's a late bloomer when it comes to puberty, right? So once he hits puberty and his quirk evolves into his like teenage body, the flames become even hotter than they were before, making them blue. And he's amazed by this. He's not freaked out. He's actually like, "This is amazing."
Yes.
And he finds out that the intensity of his flames is linked to his like excitement. And he starts to sob. Tears start streaming down his face, and he's like, "How come every time I'm excited, I start to cry?" If we go back to the beginning of the episode, where Dabi says that he's very excited to see Endeavor's response speech on TV.
And he starts crying.
He was
blood
crying
comes out of
blood.
his eyes, yeah. Ow.
Which means that he does not have tear ducts. Or they're damaged or some way. But yeah, he comes in and he's like, "Dad, I want to show you." And Endeavor lifts his shirt up and he sees even worse burns than before. And he's like, "What the hell?"
And he's about to get mad. Cause yeah.
But despite like Endeavor's clear scolding nature towards this information, Toya just keeps going. It's like, "See, please, you have to see me now. Look at what I can do now."
He starts
Like
pulling his own hair.
Yeah, he says something like, "You'll be glad to have a son like me."
Yeah. Or you'll be glad that I was born,
Yeah.
is the line. And like, I can't like the shot of an. Oh yeah, I was about to say I can't tell the reaction. I know exactly what the reaction of his face was because he has this like look, and then the next scene is him knocking Ray down to the ground.
Yeah,
And
because he's like,
Shoto,
why didn't you watch him? Why didn't you like stop him from doing this? And
Pushing all that blame onto Ray for
Shoto
that
is
one moment.
kicking and screaming and crying, and Fuyumi and Natsu are cowering, crying in the corner, and Endeavor is just a hulking silhouette, and Ray's like, I couldn't stop him, and I couldn't do it. And then she looks into this really scary shot of Endeavor.
yeah, that shit was like, this entire scene was uncomfortable, bro. I
It
did
was
not
so
like it.
No, they do a perfect job painting how monstrous he looks to his entire family and how scary Endeavor can be when just pushed to this extreme.
Yeah.
Like their fear, genuine fear in all of them.
And it's a shot of his eye, right? And then it's another shot of Toya's eye. And then it's a shot of Shoto's eye. And the steaming kettle on the ground.
Yeah, we know that.
And that's when, of course, Ray was put into the mental hospital. And she says that when she found out that Toya had died is when she completely just mentally broke. The reference footage subtitles was said heart was broken, but that's not correct.
Yeah.
I just noticed.
No. Yeah, these
then
wrong subs.
And then we see where Dabi begins, where Toya ends, and where Dabi begins. He's crying in the forest, and it's so good. His visually, it's so good. It's not a good situation.
Awesome.
It's artistically very well made. Where his tears catch fire from his eyes, and then it surrounds his entire body as the forest bursts into flames, and he starts screaming and he can't turn it off. And then in a flash we see blue fire, and it's a cutback to Dabi on the couch, and it's like, well, of course this was the result. The only thing you taught me was to make my fire stronger. You reap what you sow. It goes back to the flashback. The forest is completely burned down. And then you see Endeavor's reaction is just shock.
Yeah.
And
desperately trying to push people out of the way to like go and find Toya, but there was nothing.
And as we knew, he didn't stop looking for him for a very long time.
Even when all they had was a fragment of a jawbone.
Oh yeah, they said a smidge. And like, doesn't he say at some point like he kind of feels like he basically like killed his own son?
He doesn't even say basically. He said, after I killed Toya, all I could do was just focus on Shoto, because that's all I just could focus on. And all of the entire family is like, we could have done something to maybe avoid that happening.
Toya sent an example of like what we could have done better, what we could have done to change all that like went wrong.
Because that's kind of like the main thing, is that like obviously there's a source. Like there's a source here, which is Endeavor, but the entire family is kind of just being like, yeah, like we all created this. This was all something that we had a hand in, essentially, and we need to like bear that responsibility.
They still
because even the earlier line that Ray said was like, the guilt that you're feeling, like we are feeling it 10 times more.
Yeah.
I love that in a family as big as this, even though like Fuyumi and Natsuo and Ray aren't like major characters in the story, every single member of the family has a specific reaction to these events and how they lived into this household and how they responded to their trauma. And all of them make sense for their characters, and all of them are very relatable in big situations like this, and I
Yeah.
really appreciate that, because it's not just Shoto, Enji, and Toya, which it easily could have been, and if it was any other series, it probably would have been, but they actually went through the time to show how everyone felt.
Yeah.
How everyone had some sort of not role to play, but they had some kind of opportunity to maybe steer their family's dynamic into a different direction and just never took it.
Yeah, even like Fuyumi, because Fuyumi, like, in last season, we saw her trying to kind of bring the family back together. Like, she wanted them to be a normal family, which, like, it kind of worked for a little bit, but, like, obviously, what's going on now, they can't just, like, forget the past and try to act normal. Like,
She
this
trying to
is
shoulder that entire burden of like gluing everybody back together.
yeah,
and
even though it had
they-
nothing to
everything
do
up.
with her.
They're doing exactly as what Dabi said a few episodes ago and earlier this episode. They're reaping what they sown.
It's like
And Natsuo, of course, makes the point that Endeavor is still the cause of this all.
Yeah, like
Of
he
course.
caused it.
And I think maybe Fuyumi and not being a little too hard on themselves, because what could have they done? They were children.
They were
Yeah.
they were babies. Yeah, like that is what that is one thing where it's like I do not blame the children.
I don't
Like,
blame
but-
Natsuo
I
and Fuyumi at all.
I don't
But-
blame the kids.
when they're in that position, they only think about what they could have done in that situation.
Right.
How
Yeah,
good-
which
they
is
just kind of
realistic.
stood by and let it happen in their mind. But obviously, we know from the outside, it's like, yeah, they were
Yeah.
cowering in fear for a reason.
It's
I-
realistic.
I want to continue on, because what happens next is really good, because after they're done kind of reminiscing about this whole horrible situation, Ray's ultimate point in all of this is you are not alone, because we are here to pick you back up right now, because what you need to do is fight Toya and stop Dabi, because that is your
Yeah.
responsibility, but we are also here to back you up on that. And there's like a moment where she's like looking over and she's looking at Shoto, and she's like, he's starting to call me mom again. He's the hero
Even though
of this family.
Yeah, I love that line. Shoto is the hero of this family.
And Shoto,
Yeah, 'cause
despite
she's
the
like,
fact,
even yeah.
no, go ahead.
No, you can go.
Despite the fact that Shoto is having an incredibly tough time talking because of his damaged vocal cords, he goes up to Endeavor and puts his hand out and he said, earlier I was thinking that I had to do this alone, that you couldn't fight Dabi. But after talking with Mom, we don't have to fight him alone. We can do this together. So when you're done crying, let's go and stop him. And everyone's like looking, and he's just sobbing his eyes out. And then the door opens again, interrupting them never crying.
And fucking Hawks and Gina's coming like, hey, hi.
Hello, hi.
Like,
You done?
And
Hey, guys.
and Ray, bless her heart, she like gets down on the ground and starts like apologizing, and Hawks is like, oh wait, no, you don't have to do that.
no.
don't
It's okay.
don't mischaracterize this. We are not here to get on your fucking husband.
Frantically typing.
Yeah.
And they're pretty much here to just like also say that, we are also here to back you up because we're like the top 3 heroes.
Yeah.
But Hawks goes over to Shoto and he puts his like arm on. He's like leaning on Shoto. I just realized that Shoto is like way taller than Hawks is, by the way.
Oh damn.
Oh
Oh yeah,
but he's,
by a little bit, yeah.
and he goes up to his Scar and he's like, yo, Endeavor, was this you? And Ray is like, no, that one was me. It's a long story. And Hawks thinks back to why did you play the? We're looking at the reference footage.
No,
He
the
skipped-
show did that. The show played the clip of him getting
Not my
kicked
fucking
again.
fault.
kicked in
The show was
the.
like, look at Hawks getting kicked again.
But yeah, the top 3 heroes, the villains are still at large. We got to team up. We're gonna do this because it's not just your family who's backing you up. It's us. They called in like heroes from around the world. They're coming. Shit's got to get done. And Hawks closes off this conversation with one question. What is one for all?
Oh yeah.
And Endeavor thinks about it for a second, and he's like, Deku. And that's kind of the end of that scene.
The like, as much as we, all of us being ahead in the story, like going back to this, like with how big of a secret One for All was, like for like the entire series, like seeing them like put it
crazy.
together is nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Cause quite honestly, like I remember in earlier seasons, I'm just like, how did anyone not figure this out? Cause like Deku was with All Might all the time. Like, I mean, I guess the only person who did figure it out was Bakugo, cause it's fucking
Yeah.
Bakugo.
It's more
Yeah.
so like when his Black Whip unleashed. That was when it was really breaking.
It's like that main thing they had to rely on was like the idea of passing a quirk down to another person was like unheard of outside of All for One.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
had that as like a security blanket, as it were.
Like that is something you can't explain, like, or like excuse. Yeah, but fucking that's kind of where the episode like.
Yeah, we
It
just
goes
cut
to
to the
Deku-
kids.
it goes to Deku and he's in bed and he's like.
I like the part where they're passing Bakugo and Genist is like, great exposure, murder god dynamite. Are you okay? Do I look okay?
Full
He
Yeah.
committed.
What a great
This-
episode.
It
Jesus
was one of the
fucking
most
Christ.
most solid episodes of like MHA ever.
Yeah.
They do a really good job depicting the backstories. Like they did, like even for all the faults the MVA adaptation did, they did a great job with Tenko's backstory. Same thing here with Toya's backstory.
Mhm.
They hit every beat they need to.
Yeah,
and
I
hurts.
am I this family gives me a headache.
Yeah,
Like
you
the
believe-
Todoroki family gives me a fucking headache.
keeping up with the Todorokis.
Can you believe that a lot of people think this is where MHA fell off?
Are you
Really?
kidding me?
This shit is spicy.
Give it a few chapters at least. This was really good.
This is flavor. Like
People
I
were-
don't know.
I don't know. Like every time this series comes up, it's like, oh yeah, but MHA fell off though. It's like, no, it didn't.
It went up.
You fell off.
People say
You're
this-
stupid.
People say like, yeah, this part of MHA is where it falls off, and I'm like, no, it's really good.
I
It's the
think
best.
I my hot take is that even to this day in the manga, it's probably the best it's ever been. And I'm wholeheartedly saying that with my chest out.
Mhm.
While I agree and disagree. Not getting into it for a little anime onlys of the audience, but also
Yeah.
where we are currently, going from here to where we are in the manga, like this episode to where we are now, some of the best moments in the whole series. Even if sometimes the glue between moments is shaky.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get that, but I think that the highs are much higher than the lows.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like I can count one big low and then like 5 high highs in this current arc alone. So
Right.
it's not like we're dive bombing. And in comparison to a lot of other anime and manga series, it's like consistently great
Yeah.
in like doing a lot better. Even
We already
with the
had
flaws.
like the mid arc and like another season, so
No, we had
We're-
season 3. All right, we had provisional license. We're past that now.
There's only-
that's literally the only arc where I'm just like, all right, bro.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of the original final exams arc either. I think it's
Really?
Yeah, the one in the manga.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the
But-
anime did a really good job reorganizing that.
That's Yeah, but this episode was fucking. I mean, I guess like my last thing, like I want to say about it, just like it's just so like complex and like well written. Like Trev already said it, but this is writing a family turmoil like this could have easily been so like black and white and just kind of like make like just making like Endeavor like a cartoony villain almost.
Yeah.
And then like
And,
cartoonishly redeeming him too, which they
Yeah, like,
never outright do.
That's what I was afraid of them doing, but I don't think that's the pathway they're going down. I think literally it's just like they're humanizing him for sure, but I think that they're just showing you this family and like I think I don't know why it like my favorite thread of it I guess is just Ray, because Ray like she definitely had a hand in this. She agreed to marry Endeavor and was passive in a lot of stuff that he did, but she also became progressively traumatized by like even being near her own children was traumatizing for her,
Yeah.
Ray,
and now she's in this position where she is the one who is asserting herself and coming back and being like, we have to fix this,
the
which I
different
think
like
is so
the different dynamics of all of these each family member is so fucking interesting, and I love it.
yeah.
Because like Endeavor is not they're look, the story is not redeeming him in any way. It's just humanizing him. That's all.
Yeah.
The moment I had confidence in what they were doing with this character, besides, Pro Hero being amazing, was him talking to Natsuo and just saying, I don't want your forgiveness. I don't deserve your forgiveness. All I want to do is atone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how you know they're doing this good.
There's
Yeah. I think also just because they're not afraid to show that he was a terrible person. Like they
No.
straight up show this. Yeah, he was a terrible fucking person, and he still has to deal with the consequences of that to this day, even if him and the entire family were trying to avoid it. Like they all had to face that again.
talking
know?
about Ray again. In the very beginning of the episode, as Endeavor is narrating about in the flashback, he's like, he says something along the lines of like, she was a woman of ice, she could melt, like it felt like she could melt by just touching her. But in this with this arranged marriage, she could have said no, chose not to, which makes the statement that Toya said about her like being complicit, right? Just kind of like I don't know what it does necessarily. I'm kind of blanking on the verbiage, but like she did choose self, even if it's like of not the right choice. I think she should have said no, but maybe she saw something, anything like good out of this, but just
I mean, it's
not,
what she said in the
did not
hospital too. Like in Pro Hero, where even after like Natsuo was tearing into Enji, she's still like, did you know that he left these flowers for me? Ever since the day we met, he knew he loved these, and
It's
he
like-
dropped these off for me in the
It's
hospital.
one of the first interactions ever, probably outside of high low, like
Yeah.
which
And he
is
remembers
like
still.
It's like if this was any other relationship.
Yeah, it would be like, oh, yeah, you were meant, but like, to me, it's like there's a sweetness to it, but it's also just like, is this one of the only times y'all have been like truly happy together? Like that's what that kind
I
of
would
feels
argue,
like.
Or at least connected.
I would argue that when Toya, before they discovered he was hurting himself, and from this point, Toya not hurting himself, and Fuyumi's birth, and like her like earlier years before Toya started hurting himself, that was like the happiest they were.
Fuyumi was kind of a love child, in a
Right.
way.
In a way, because it was Rei's idea to have for Toya to grow up with a sibling.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they're only a year apart, so it's not like Toya was even using his fire at that point. But it's really sweet in a way, but it's because of the situation turns it into a very sad moment.
It's just, God.
It makes
Jesus
me very
Christ.
upset.
This family makes me so fucking upset.
It's so devastating seeing all of these different facets of it. And the fact that it is so nuanced and so layered is once again attributing to Horikoshi's depiction of this situation.
Like, sometimes I just remember and I think about it and I'm just like,
this could have been a whole anime itself. Just this plot line in My Hero. It's just the Todorokis, but it's just one in a sea.
It's so... I don't know if like there's... Because I know there's future Todoroki family episodes coming in the future. I don't know.
You said that there's more Todoroki.
There's more Todoroki lore.
I'm behind on the manga.
And I don't know if I don't know what I'm gonna say because it's just good all the time. You know?
You're just like, oh.
And Shoto is such a good kid.
I love Shoto, dude. He's literally the GOAT. Like, I don't know.
He's being a good guy.
Something really like small and subtle I like about, Shoto's role in all this is once again following up of that last episode, Hawk's seeing it's like, wow, Shoto, you're so cool. I could never do what you're doing in a family situation like this.
Yeah.
I didn't have that strength that you did as a kid to like stand up. I just had to sit there and bear it and grit my teeth. But you managed to come out on the other side a genuinely good person.
It's interesting too, because back during season 1, Shoto could have easily gone down the path that Endeavor had gone.
Yeah.
He
just angry and resentful.
And the path Toyo could have gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Through it all, Shoto was able to change that path and become a much more heroic, better person.
Oh, we did lose that discussion of Shoto growing up to be like Endeavor, didn't we? Damn.
Fuck.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, what was lost was that Shoto brings up that if he continued his path, of how he was in like season 1, early season 2, he would end up like Dabi. We proposed the idea that he would end up like Endeavor, but very like anti using his fire. He would be like the ice Endeavor. I don't remember like the complexities of the discussion, but it was real good.
It sounds like it would have been really interesting.
I just love I'm obsessed with that that sort of character introspection thing where it's like I could have easily became what I sought to not become. Like, it's so good. It's so self-deprecating, but it's so good. It's like
you're just eating it up.
You have the self-awareness to see, but you also just don't know what to do. It's like, oh my god, I'm gonna fucking blow
you end
up.
up right back where you started, and it's an awful feeling.
Blows up.
We came up with the idea of him growing up to be like Endeavor because of resentment, right? Because Endeavor was resentful of All Might, then Shoto would have been resentful of Endeavor, and it would have been just like a cycle of maybe not abuse, but it would have been a cycle of hate.
He would have just been cold and shut away.
Bitter towards everything.
Yeah.
I remember watching this episode, and after we were done, I was just like, I want Shoto to have the world.
Yeah.
Dude, He's so good.
He's doesn't deserve.
He's the family hero.
He's the hero of this family.
And he wants to like carry that on going into this battle with Toya.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
The flavor of this drama.
Dude, it's so
Spicy,
Delicious!
spicy. And, like I said before, the ED for this part 2. It just feels like a cold shower after all of that shit you just went
Just
through.
like,
Like you just think about it and it kind of like washes away that pain you just felt.
For sure.
What a great episode, dude.
It
Jesus.
is. It is probably out of
Like-
this little batch that we just watched the strongest out of the 3.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Like, I think also the feeling I had after watching this episode was like, I don't feel bad for Dabi. I feel bad for Toya. I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
bad for Toya.
Because Dabi is just nothing but hatred, and
And like
It
that's what I
could've-
mean. That's what Endeavor, you know, that's what he was born for. And
He was. What's sad is he
Besides
was born.
everything.
What's besides everything else? What's sad is that Toya was born, with a directive, right? He was born with a purpose,
yeah.
and throughout his entire life as Toya, that was the only thing that he ever strove for, was that one single purpose. But in a way, it was like, I feel like he wasn't striving for that purpose because he wanted to. He was doing it because it would get Dad's attention,
yeah.
right?
He wanted that I mean that's kind of because literally like most of his lines are very just like, look at me, Dad, like I'm doing what you want me to do, like I'm being the son that you always wanted me to be, you
And
know?
I think it's incredibly depressing that because Endeavor was done communicating with Toyo. He was pushing him aside. The only time Toya got to interact with Endeavor was when Endeavor was scolding him for hurting himself. In a bizarre way, I kind of wanted to bring up like the idea of, is Toya going out to train by himself a form of self-harm from like this like very depressing situation that he's in? Is he depressed enough to self-harm, and is this his form of doing it?
I mean,
it
he
very
definitely
well could be.
he's mentally ill.
He's incredibly mentally ill.
He's mentally ill.
I think it's probably a bit of that, and maybe a mixture of an escape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think
with his flames being tied to emotion as strongly as they are, it's his
Oh,
form
yes.
of lashing out. You know,
Yeah.
like letting everything he bottled up in just let it flare up, while also being
Exactly.
like, yeah, if I keep doing this, then I can get noticed.
There's like
Yeah.
this stigma of like oh, you self-harm because you just want attention or whatever, but like in this situation specifically, it is getting him attention because he craves attention from his father.
from his dad.
I mean,
And like I think also too, like, well, I from what I know is that like self-harm, like with people who are suicidal, people who deal with depression and stuff, when you do not have a proper outlet to express emotion, you don't know how to process them, you have no idea how to properly like deal with them, like, but you do know how to properly process physical pain.
Yeah.
You know exactly what that feels like. And I mean, it's different for different people, obviously, but especially since his quirk is tied to his emotions, like when it gets more intense, it's way more intense. So like, I don't know, you could make a connection there. I mean, I don't know. I never really read it as him like intentionally trying to hurt himself because that's just a byproduct of his quirk.
But you very well could.
You could read it as that. I think.
It's like funny, not funny. It's interesting that like it's like training my fire quirk just to feel something.
I was gonna say something tying back to like wanting to be seen. I believe doesn't Toya say like right before he engulfs himself, like, I just want you to see me.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
So I believe, like, I mean, obviously, but it's nice putting that together, that like the reason that Dabi's dance was such a glorified spectacle was probably part of that. It's like, now you can't
now
ignore
you can
me.
see me. Yeah.
You can see me right front and center, and you can't ignore me.
I love father issues. Because even though it goes from that to like wanting to see Endeavor suffer, the main consistent point is Endeavor. Like that's never left. It's always been about Endeavor.
Normally, this is where UA Anime Club, after a break, would end, but we got one more episode in us. We got one whole episode.